Hello everyone, welcome or welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Emily. As you can tell by the title, in today's video I'm going to be discussing all of the books that I read in September, which was a month that really flew by. I feel like September was the quickest month for me this year, specifically because I had surgery. For a couple of weeks I was recovering, so I feel like I didn't read as much as I usually would, but at the same time by the end of the month I definitely still read a lot more books because I've read a lot the past week or so since recovering. But of course, as usual, I'm going to be going through the statistics and the genre breakdown of the books that I actually read. So to start off with, I read a total of 10 books in September. I had 2 DNFs in the month, which was This Wretched Dawn. This was like a fantasy book, and straight off the bat I just really didn't like the writing style of this. I think the writing style was very juvenile and I just couldn't get into the story. I think it definitely needed more editing. I think that's my best way that I can describe that book. So unfortunately I just couldn't get into that one. And then the other book that I DNF'd was All the Little Raindrops by Mia Sheridan. I think I got this one off Audible for free. That's why I gave it a go. But again, I just didn't really like the story and didn't really like what was going on, so I just stopped reading that one. Out of the 6 books that I set myself on my TBR for September, I actually ended up reading all 6 of them. One of them technically was This Wretched Dawn, which was a DNF, but I did read all of them, and this is the first month that I've read every single book on my TBR, so I'm very happy with that result. And the way that I chose my TBR was actually like with my read it or unhaul it jar, so I would say that that's pretty successful because I only ended up unhauling one of them. I read a total of 4,208 pages, and my average rating across the 10 books was 3.85 stars. Now on to the genre breakdown of the books I actually read. I read 3 thriller books, 2 fantasy/dystopian books, 2 general fiction books, and 3 romance books. So I feel like it was very even all around this month. Now that we have gone through all of that, I'm going to get straight into the books in no particular order. The first book I have is Rumored by Kelly and Christina Mann-Caruso. I did get this one as an early copy, but I believe the book is coming out very soon now. This is actually a thriller book, and this one kept me on the edge of my seat the whole time. This was so well written and so well put together. There was so many Easter eggs in this book. We are following a famous pop star, Harlow Hayes, who is actually accused of murder. And we are also following a news journalist who goes to New York because that's where the pop star lives and tries to investigate what actually happened. And we're kind of finding out all these little things through the journalist's eyes. I think I read most of these books in videos this month. I know that I definitely read this one in a video, and you can just see how much I loved it in that video. I feel like this is one of those books where if you were in a reading slump and you need something that's fast paced like a thriller, this would be a great recommendation for that. And I've literally seen no one else talk about it, so I would highly recommend if you need a book to pull you back out of that reading slump. I gave this one 4.5 stars. The next book I read I actually only finished on the last day of September, and that was Blood Over Brighthaven by M.L. Wang. This was actually my Fable Book Club's pick for September as well, and because I had such a busy month with my surgery, I did not get to it till the end of the month, but I was able to binge this in like 2 days because I just loved it so much. This book is very much centered around misogyny and sexism against women. We are following Skyona, who wants to kind of join this like magic society. It's like these higher ups, but all of the people are actually males. Of course, she wants to be the first female to try to get this role, get this position to pursue magic. And the magic system in this book and this world was so incredibly cool. I'll show you guys a picture of the front of the book because there's like an illustration of what they use. It is called a spellograph, and they do all of their spells with this device, and it's kind of like coding in a way. Like, I feel like that's the best way I can explain it. It is literally the coolest but most intricate magical system I've ever read. It was very complicated, but once I understood what was happening, I very much enjoyed it. This book also has a very sweet friendship in it between Skyona and this man called Tamil, and it's a very unlikely friendship as well. They kind of build this like alliance with each other, and I just think their friendship was the sweetest part of this book. I just loved them two together, and they had so much character development. This book was so beautifully written. Like, I feel like my annotations should show you how much I loved this. Like, I annotated this like crazy. There were so many beautiful quotes in this book, and I believe it is just going to stay a standalone as well, and I feel like we need more standalones. Like, I always hate going into books that are like part of big series because it's kind of intimidating, but I love going into a standalone because the story's kind of just done and you're satisfied by the end of it. And let me tell you, the ending of this book was shocking, but I was very satisfied with it. I think it was such a beautiful ending to a book, so I actually gave this one 5 stars. The next book I read was Unloved by Peyton Corrine. I gave this one 4 stars. This is actually the sequel to Unsteady, which is another little ice hockey romance. That's what this one is as well, and it's set in a college. This one has some really important mental health representation through ADHD and dyslexia, and I feel like that's why I love this book so much. I feel like I repeat myself myself all the time, but I will always say I love a book that has any representation in it, whether that's mental health or, you know, like a physical health issue. I always love it in a book because I feel like it needs to be spoken about more, and it makes the books feel more real and the characters feel more real. And that's exactly how I felt about this one, because that's kind of what we're going through in the character's life. So we are following Freddie, who has the ADHD and dyslexia and dyscalculia as well, and then Ro, who is a girl that ends up tutoring him, and she understands him, and all of the other people make fun of him, and she just wants to help him so badly, and that's exactly what she does throughout this book. Again, such a beautiful story. I just love when the characters actually have chemistry and they actually really feel like they love each other, and I also just love that this started off as a little friendship between them and then it just led to something more naturally. The next book I read was The Perks of Being a Wallflower, and I also gave this one 4 stars. I had watched the movie like quite a few years prior, but honestly I didn't remember anything about it, so I feel like I went into this one blindly. First of all, I love that it's written in letter format, so it's following a character who is writing to a friend, and we don't actually know who that friend is. It is a coming of age novel, so we are basically just following Charlie in his day-to-day life and his experiences going into school, and I just think that was so sweet, and I just love the way that this book was written. I feel like it made me really connect to all of the characters in this, even though it was literally like less than 250 pages. I feel like because it was written in letter form, it really made you connect to them so quickly. And again, I always say it, but I'll say it again, I love a book that follows a character in their day-to-day lives. I love a very strong character-driven book, and that's exactly what this was, so I did very much enjoy this, and I do definitely want to rewatch that movie now. The next book I read was Hunting Adeline by H.D. Carlton. This is the sequel to Haunting Adeline, which I read maybe like 2 to 3 years ago now, and I've been putting off reading this book ever since, and now that I've actually finished it, I definitely understand why I was putting this book off for so long, because I hated this. I actually ended up giving this one 2 stars, and that was very surprising to me because back when I read the first book, I think I gave it 5 stars, which definitely wouldn't be a 5-star now. I used to give them out a lot easier, but I actually enjoyed the plot line of that book even through the very dark scenes, and I wouldn't recommend this series at all if you do not look up trigger warnings, because it is very dark. But I don't know, going into this one, I just didn't really expect how dark this was really going to be. Like, I knew where it was following on from the first book, which I can't really say without spoiling anything. It was just so much more gruesome, and I found myself feeling like physically ill reading specific parts of this book. It was also just very long. Like, it's like pretty much at the 650 page mark, and it just didn't need to be that long. Like, I feel like at the halfway point I was kind of satisfied with the story, and then the second half I did not care whatsoever about what was happening, so that just didn't really need to be there. I feel like I don't even really need to explain much about this. I feel like people either love this duology or hate it, but I can safely say I'm glad that I finished this duology now and I never have to think about it again. The next book I read was Beartown by Frederick Buckman, which was actually my second and last 5-star read of the month. I've only read one other Frederick Buckman book, which was a couple of months ago, and that was A Man Called Uva, and I really loved that as well. It made me feel so emotional, and I got so attached to Uva in that story. I think that is such a beautiful book and such a beautiful movie as well. They did the movie really well, and so I've been really excited to read something else from him, and this vlog is already up. I read your 5-star reads for a week, and a lot of people wanted me to read this, so that's what pushed me to pick this up this month, and I'm really glad that I did. In this book, we are following a town called Beartown, and the most important thing to most people in this town is ice hockey, and that is because they have a junior ice hockey team who are trying to make it to the championships, and that's kind of like the whole idea of this book. We meet so many different characters in this. Like, there is truly so many different characters to keep track of, and you will love some characters and you will also hate some characters. And again, this is one of those books where you're pretty much just following the characters in their day-to-day lives, but I will also say look up trigger warnings for this book, because I had no idea there would be such heavy topics in this just looking at it. Like, it doesn't really give that vibe, but there is very heavy topics in this, and it's a topic that I know a lot of people would not feel comfortable reading, so please look it up because it is very prevalent in this book. I would say that at least half of this book is discussing this topic, and it's a very important topic, and that's why I loved this so much, because I love books that explore very important topics from our society. I also just felt so satisfied with the way this book ended as well. There is nothing I hate more than when I hate a book's ending, but I feel like I just loved this so much. It was done so well. I also feel like I should mention the first little lines of this book, because this is what really pulled me in and made me want to keep reading. It says, late one evening towards the end of March, a teenager picked up a double-barreled shotgun, walked into the forest, put the gun to someone else's forehead and pulled the trigger. This is the story of how we got there. So when you're reading the whole book, that is sort of always in the back of your mind, and you're wondering how they went from such a loving small town where everyone's so supportive of each other until that point, which is obviously where we get to at the end of the book. Amazing. Cannot wait to read the rest of this series. The next book I read was Fable for the End of the World by Ava Reid. This one is described as a 2010s dystopian sort of vibe, and I can definitely vouch for that. Also a standalone, which of course I love. This book is following our main character Anissa, whose family runs a taxidermy shop. At the start of the book, she is chosen to compete in this sort of like Hunger Games sort of thing, and it's with these robots. So the robot's name is Malinois, who has to hunt her down in like the forest, and it is like televised for everyone to watch, which is why I say it's very much giving Hunger Games vibes. But this like robot sort of character Malinois is like still pretty much partly human, so they definitely still have a lot of emotions, and I feel like I didn't expect anything that happened in this because of that. I just think that this was a really sweet, beautiful story, and you're probably thinking, how can that be a sweet story? But I feel like you need to read it to actually understand. I can't really say anything without spoiling anything. I also ended up giving this one 4 stars. I feel like I had a lot of 4-star reads this month. The next book I read was Story of My Life by Lucy Score, which I also read because a few of you wanted me to read this because it's your 5-star reads. And this is another one that I actually annotated as well. Definitely not a crazy amount of tabs, but I did meet Lucy Score last week, and so I wanted to binge this and annotate it before meeting her because I've read other books from her that I haven't annotated, and I thought it would be cool to get a book signed that I had annotated, so that's exactly what I did. This is following Hazel, who is a really famous author, but at the point we are at in this book, she is a struggling writer and she's actually in a writing slump. A lot of her fans have kind of dropped off because they're waiting for her to release a book in this series that she's written, but it's been like 2 or 3 years since she's done that, so they're kind of just like giving up on her now. So when her contract with her publisher is threatened, she ends up moving to a small town to try to find inspiration. She ends up meeting this man who is actually renovating the house that she is living in this small town because it is very much giving haunted vibes and she needs it to be fixed up. And of course they spark up a little romance. This is very much Grumpy Sunshine, also very much a slow burn. I feel like Lucy Score is great at doing both of those things, but my only criticism of this is that it was definitely way too long. I feel like there was no way that this book had to be over 500 pages. I would say that about quite a lot of romances, honestly, especially when there isn't like an emotional element. Like this was very much rom-com the entire way through, and I just feel like it was just way too long for that reason. So I did end up giving this one 3.5 stars, even though I really enjoyed the story and the characters. It very much gave me the Knock 'Em Out series vibe, and I am also very excited to get the next book in this series, but I just think this one was way too long and it dragged on, and that definitely dropped my rating quite a lot. Now onto the 2 books that I don't have physical copies for because I did read these 2 on my Kindle. The first one I have is Under Her Care by Lucinda Berry. I've read quite a few Lucinda Berry books now, and I've honestly enjoyed pretty much all of them that I've read. I think she's an incredible thriller author who is not spoken about enough. This one is actually following the story of a boy with autism who is found next to the scene of a crime of a woman who was murdered, and he is covered in blood, and his mum is of course saying that he's innocent, and she's trying to prove his innocence and prove what actually happened. Obviously thriller books like this also have that like deeper element as well, because I feel like people with autism, obviously sometimes they can struggle to communicate and they can't actually explain what happened, and that's exactly what happened in this book. He can't explain what happened, he can't explain why he was there, and that's why it's really hard to uncover the truth, but I feel like it is something that could definitely happen in real life as well. I did quite enjoy this one. I think it was really, really well done. I gave it 3.5 stars just because I remember not really being that satisfied by the ending. Sometimes thriller books just don't really satisfy me with the ending, and I think that was my biggest criticism of this book, but I would still definitely recommend Lucinda Berry's writing in general. She is an incredible writer. And the last book that I read was The Woman in Cabin 10. I believe this one is coming out in a movie. That's why I decided to pick it up and read it. This one is following a journalist who goes on a trip on this yacht, and one night on the yacht she ends up seeing this woman get thrown overboard, and there is like blood all over the balcony, and she calls someone to come and look at it, like a security guard on the boat, and then all the blood is gone, and no one believes her for this whole entire book because all the passengers have technically been accounted for, and there's no one that is missing on the yacht because it's like very prestigious. There's not many people on the yacht. The whole book we are trying to uncover the truth and figure out if she is going crazy or if she actually did see this happening, because it's very, very conflicting throughout reading this. Again, I think the ending of this book really just wasn't satisfying to me. I'm definitely very excited for the movie. I think the movie could make me enjoy it more, but I did end up giving this one 3 stars as well. Sometimes thrillers just do it for me and sometimes they don't, and I just feel like that was the case with this book. Like it just didn't do it for me, unfortunately, but I know a lot of people love this, so maybe it was just a me problem. But that was the last book that I read in in September. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Hopefully you got some new recommendations out of this. I feel like I did read a few books this month that I do not see spoken about as much, so hopefully I put some on your radar as well. Definitely leave a comment letting me know what your favorite read was in September. I always love knowing what books that you guys love, because I feel like if you were watching me for my book taste, it means we all have very similar book tastes, so I would probably love the books that you guys love as well. But yeah, with all of that being said, thank you again so much for watching, and I hope to see you all in my next video.